Tony.
James.
Tass.
David.
Cousin. Nabi.
Tibor.
Marty.
Roger.
Carl. Jim.
Tris. Michael.
Jack.
Joseph.
Jones.
David.
Sheila.
Ross.
Linda. Anita.
Dean. Heyman.
And Bob.
Hi.
Hi, Bob.
Well, the same old, same old. We point to what they call non-duality. Non-duality meaning one without a second, not two. Only that. They call it Sat, Chit, Ananda, Nama, River. Five factors. The voice is not too good, is it? And everything is that. There is nothing, no thing separate and apart from that. So we've got the idea we are these personal entities, these separate individuals, but recognising what they're saying is so, if you investigate it to see, then you can only be that, because that is all there is. And you know that if you heard the great mantra, they say, I am that. And everything is that. Because that's the chair you're sitting in, that's the room, the carpet in the room, the trees, the flowers, all that manifestation has names and forms. But it is all that and only that. And they call it in some of the more traditions pointing out the truth of it all, they call it the basic space of phenomena, pointing out that the base of everything is space. And what's the first thing any one of you see in this room? You'll say, I see the chair, I see the table. But the very first thing, the thing closest to your eyeballs is space. And you realise that, look around you, that everything is in space. There's not anything at all that could be outside of space. And that's what they call it, the adornment of space. Just like the things in this room are adorning the room. So all this manifestation, including you, me, and everything else, are the adornment of space. So that means we are nothing but space in reality. Patterning, shaping, forming, we've taken on the idea that we are these human shapes and forms. And that's belief in the human shape and form, me, or I, is the sense of separation. And of course, as soon as there comes separation, belief in two, there comes with the division. Me and not me, good and bad. As Shakespeare tells you, nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Pleasure, pain, happy, sad. All concepts or words we've learned. We pick up these words and take that division to be two different things. But it's still the same life essence that's expressing these concepts, these words, these thoughts. So it's the one essence expressing, patterning, shaping, forming, and experiencing as everything. In the recognition that you are everything, and that everything is absolute, and you must be that absolute. And in the recognition of that, what can you say about yourself then? Absolute. Can you add anything to it? You can't. Can you take anything away from it? You can't. It wouldn't be absolute. Or in Buddhism they call it the great perfection. Perfection is the same as the absolute. If it's perfect, can you add anything to it? Can you take anything away from it? They call it there, the great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. Now, Satchitananda Namarupa, existence, consciousness, bliss, or being, knowing and loving to be. Anyone not being? No, you'll say, I am being. Of course you're being, and you know that. Can't get away from it. Anyone who's not knowing that being. No, you say, I know. There's a knowing there of that being. Is there anyone who is unconscious? And you go again, that also, no, I'm not unconscious, or I'm not unaware. So all these patterns, shapes and forms appearing as a human form are aware. So there's an awareness of being, as they say, awareness of being is the blissful. In the recognition of that, you realise that you are already that. Instead of getting this believed to become realised or liberated or whatever terms or concepts they put on it, or become one, how can you become one with everything when you already are the one? So see the futility of these practices and meditations are the things that we're doing all the time, trying to get to what we already are. And what you are is that non-conceptual, ever-fresh presence awareness. Negate it if you can. But all these thoughts, concepts and ideas come up. What's a thought? A word. How many words were you born with? You realise you weren't born with any words. And you didn't, so you can't say I was born even. Until you learnt words. And then your parents told you were little Johnny or little Jean or whatever your name might be. And then you added on that I thought that's there, give it something to fasten onto. So I am little Johnny or little Billy. And so that idea of a separate entity, an individual, is being reinforced and known. But is the word the thing? And you didn't pick up any words. Your first couple of years of your life, you were living without words. That's why you can't remember your birth. You were seeing, you were hearing, you were functioning well, but you didn't say, Daddy or Mummy, I want this, I want that, until you learnt words. And you'd, like the animals and birds, you'll gurgle or laugh or cry or whatever, let them know what was needed. But when you learnt the words, the capacity of reasoning developed as that little embryo grew, the little baby grew, and picked up these words as it grows along. And in the growing of it, who or what was doing that? Just the same as in the birth of it. What you're doing about the birth? You say, I was born. You can't remember your birth. But how did you come into existence? When you investigate and look at that, you'll see there was that animating life essence in your father enabled in that pattern a microscopic particle called a sperm to form through the livingness or the life that was going on, the breathing, the heart beating, and the eating food and the digesting, and the growing of replacing of cells and all the rest of it, the way the life was functioning, formed a sperm. Now that sperm was suffused with intelligence. It knew what to do. The same in your mother. The same, that life essence patterning, shaping and forming your mother. In your mother enabled that little, in that pattern, that little egg pattern of energy called an egg or an ovum formed. That ovum was suffused with intelligence. It knew what to do. It attached itself to the wall of the uterus. So they weren't two just blobs of goo floating around. They were suffused with life or intelligence energy. And when those two came together and mingled, the life essence in them continued that patterning shape and form and formed the little fetus, the little embryo, which is what you are today. What were you doing about it then? You had no words. You didn't even have any body size the way you have to have it. But it's all formed, and has any of it ever been outside of space? It was all the concept of space. We think we are in space and seeing space. Now space, everything appears in that space. You can't postulate or think of anything outside of it. But what shape or form has space got? Here it is. You will right now have a look and see if you can find a place anywhere at all where it starts. You can't even anticipate and imagine a time where it starts. They talk about the Big Bang when the Earth started. What would the Big Bang be in? If there was anything there to explode or implode, it'd have to be in something. So it must have been in the space, the same as everything else. So that's what everything is the content of space. Space has no centre, no circumference, no beginning, no end, no shape or form. You can't put any boundaries on it. But all these pattern shapes and forms, which are the content of space, pattern shapes and forms, appears all adornments. And we take them to be real. And in taking them to be real, the problem is we lose sight of our true nature, that it's the one intelligence energy, the one life, the one reality, the one God, if you like to call it that, that's patterning, shaping, forming, experiencing, expressing as everything. And in it, there is no division and no separation. So in understanding or recognising that, who or that you are the Absolute, what can you add to Absolute? Nothing. And recognising that you are that Absolute, can anybody be superior to you or anybody inferior to you? And would you want anything from anybody else? Would you want to take anything from anybody else? Would there be any need to give anything to anybody? You can't, because it's all there in its patterning, shaping and form, and every part of it is in reality space. Through that life, this is what it is. It's an intelligence energy, I call it. I don't use the term God because you can get confused with that term. We set up something better or superior or greater power than what we are. Again, duality. And I'd say that a lot of the scripture will tell you that there's God. God is all there is. That is all there is. It is only that. There is the one essence. If it's only that, then you must be, and you are that, then the godliness, if you like to call it, you are already so. And you say, oh yeah, but I can't do this, I can't do that. No, of course you can't. You can't do anything while the belief is there that you are the separate entity, the individual, the person. It is no thing because it's an appearance. That's what they call it, a phenomenal manifestation. Definition of phenomenon is that which appears to be. What is appearance? It's seemingly so. It just seems to be real, seems to be solid. But when you look into things, you can break them down. Everything can be broken down. And this, looking here right now, it's daylight. It seems to be daylight. When you look into it and investigate it, you see what is it? It's the Earth rolling around the sun. You realise there's a sun appearing in space, and there's this Earth, a globe, which is rolling around in space, as well as stars, planets and everything else. And this side of that planet is daylight, where it's facing the sun. And on the other side it's dark, because it's facing away from the sun. If there's any such thing as daylight and dark, it's only because it appears in the sun. When it rolls around and faces away from the sun, this, what we're looking at here, will be dark. Does the Earth know anything about that darkness or light? And does light itself know anything about darkness or light? It doesn't. In that darkness, other manifestations, stars and planets will appear, the moon, and in the daylight there's the sun that's rolling around, that's moving around the sky. All patterns, shapes and forms. And the space is no thing. And so the content of space is not something is no thing also. It only appears to be so. Can something come from no thing? It can't. So whether you like it or not, realise that you are that no thing. Not zero, not nothing, a zero, zilch, a nihilist or something, but no thing. You are not the pattern, shape and form that you appear to be. But you are that life itself, that expression, that intelligence entity. The pattern, shapes and forms has the capacity of doing things. All the so-called doing of things is still only appearances, pattern, shapes and forms in space. Because space is no thing, and all you're a thing, I'm a thing, and the things we do are seeming things, which we take to believe to be separate and individual. But they call that basic space awakened mind. There is an awareness of presence right here and now. You can't say what that awareness is, but you know for certain you are not unaware. And you realise if that awareness wasn't there, basically the life, I couldn't say I'm good or bad or pleasant, painful. I couldn't even think. Wouldn't have any words, any concepts. Wouldn't be able to breathe. Heartbeat, hair to grow. But all these things come about through that life energy that vibrates and expresses through different patterns, shapes and forms. That seems to be real. You go to sleep at night and you dream. In that dreaming can be all sorts of situations, all sorts of places, doing all sorts of activities and things. And it can be a bad dream. What do you do with a bad dream? You want to get out of it. And it could be a good dream. If it's a good dream, you want to keep it more of it. But where does it all go when you wake up? You're glad to get out of the bad dream. But the good dream you want to keep there all the time. So want to keep one and get rid of the other. So that's what happens. Something comes up, you like it. Not realising that the things we like are not going to stay forever. Just like daylight and dark, the earth doesn't stay in the same place forever. It moves. It has the capacity of moving, vibrating. So the good things are not going to stay forever because thinking, living, being is transient. You mightn't realise that, but look at it, investigate and see that this body that you're living right now, there's cells being replaced and cells are dying right now. It's not the same body you walked into the room with. Look back on it a few years ago and you know for certain it's not the same. But it's the same sense of presence saying I am that was saying I am then. But as I say, the I am is just the word or the concept. So we want the good things to say. Not really that they get transient, going to change. We don't want it to change. What do? We resist it. Try and keep it there. We don't want the bad to come up, so we try and force it out and keep the good things there. But it doesn't happen. It changes in spite of all the trying from this personal point of view. The same with the good things. So in that resistance, there is conflict. That means this believed in individual, this conceptual image that believes it real, doesn't want this, it's in conflict with it, it's fighting with it, trying to get rid of it, and that causes fear, anxiety, stress, guilt, shame, remorse, unhappiness. All the psychological suffering, uneasiness. Another word for uneasiness is disease. So there's resistance, conflict and disease going on. What happens the other way? Something comes up and you don't like it. Oh, I'm a sinner, I'm a terrible person. I don't want to keep this. So again, what do? Resist it. Try to push it out. Again, resistance, conflict and disease. And that's where all our psychological problem goes on. And the dream disappears. It's not there any longer. All the places you were in, the things you were doing, is gone. But you don't realise you wake to this dream. Because this dream doesn't disappear when you wake up in the morning. It starts off from where it left off. And where it starts off from, that's not forgotten. That's still believed to be real and seemingly real and is real. But the dream, everything in the dream has disappeared. And it gives you an indication of what you really are. This life comes up, it comes into being, plays around for a while, and eventually it'll disappear back into the space again. But in the meantime, because the belief in the separatity there's lots of fear, anxiety, stress, guilt, shame, remorse, jealousy, envy, wars, everything going on, hate for your fellow man and individual because they think they've got something you haven't, they think they're superior or inferior to you. All this psychological comes about, suffering comes about because of this belief that I am this person. Where does the word person come from? Persona, the mask, a Latin word that they learnt years ago, past meaning we've got this conceptual image, a mask, a conceptual mask of thoughts, words, and have taken it to be real as this body, mind entity. And it's only me that can be unhappy. It's only me that can be fearful. It's only me that can be jealous or envy. Me is the cause of all that psychological suffering. And they are the effects of the cause. The anger, the fear, the unhappiness, the depression. Doesn't that upset the body, this pattern, shape and form through which it's expressing through? Causes the heart to beat faster, the temperature to rise, the blood to come up, and the rage and the thing, and anxiety and the stress and form. All this is caused by the belief in some concept. And it doesn't have to be that way. They call it the great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. When you look at that, without the word, ask yourself the simple question, what is wrong with right now if I don't think about it? Well, what can you say without a thought? There's a gap there in this moment, just a small gap. You realise you can't say it's good, you can't say it's bad, pleasant, painful, or anything. You can't say anything at all about it. But the breathing, the heart beating, hair in the fingernail, food being digested, the livingness hasn't stopped, the beingness hasn't stopped, the patterning, shaping and forming is still expressing these patterns which are appearing as things, but which in reality are no thing. Just a space like. Look out there in nature and see how that goes. You go down to the ocean, and the ocean, the water appears to be blue. When you investigate and look at it, you see the water's not blue. Go back and look at a clear sky. There's seemingly a blue canopy over the space, and you say a blue sky. But go up in a plane, 30 or 40,000 feet. See if you can get into the blueness there, in this space in this room. If space is blue, this would be a blue room, but it's not. So when you see the space in the snake in the rope, well, the people think there's a snake in the rope. When they go outside and stand on a wet piece of rope in the dark, not knowing what it is, they immediately imagine and anticipate it's a serpent, and they've been bit by the serpent. The fear and the trembling and everything starts. Somebody comes out and shines a torch on it. There's nothing there. So what happens? All that fear and depression disappears. It's not fixated anymore. And don't you see, the same thing applies here. If you resonate that you're not this person, you're not this separate entity, and see that you are the true nature, it's all a fiction. Where's all that fear, anxiety, stress, guilt, remorse, shame going to attach to? There's nowhere to fixate on, just like there's a great sense of relief when the person realises, it's only a piece of wet rope, shit, whatever. Don't even consider it. But it takes a while for the fear and the trembling to settle down because it's been into it. The same here. When you realise and recognise and understand your true nature, you're not bound into this crap anymore. Doesn't mean to say the thoughts won't come up, the fear and all these things, emotions will come up, but they're not fixated on them. Like it might be a movement of anger might get you out of a certain bad situation, but it won't be carried on to the way it is as we do and cause all sorts of strife and continue with that fear. It'll come up and disappear, and in its place what's there? Without those thoughts, you can't say it's good or bad. There's a sense of being well. You can't say it's right, wrong, good, bad, pleasant, pain, but you can say there's nothing wrong anymore. No thing that's interrupting this stretch of presence awareness that is right or wrong. It just is. And in that sense of being well, there is a sense of joyousness, a sense of, whatever you call it, absoluteness, well-being. Wei Wu told you, why are you unhappy? And he put out, because everything you say, everything you think, and everything you do is for yourself. And he says there isn't one. And you look at our ancient texts, you'll see it. They all point to that. It's the one essence appearing as everything. But we put this term God on it. It tells you in the big Bible, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. The Word was God. That's all we've done. We put the label God on it. All things were made by Him, by the Word. So you see that life essence is forming, patterning, shaping this Word, which you can call God if you like. But don't separate up as a separate nature, something better than you and higher than you. So you've got to try and become one with it, because you'll be trying for a hell of a long time. Because you can't become one when you are already that one. Makes it much easier. And that's what they say in a lot of the scriptures. Start from the fact of your own being. Because if you look at the word becoming, it implies a future time. And when you look at the word time and investigate time, time is past, present and future. And they'll tell you that time is a mental concept. Investigate and see for yourself. Is there a past if I don't think about it? Well, to do that, you've got to settle in a little gap between thoughts for a moment. Without a thought, there's nothing there but a clear and fresh space-like awareness. Can't say the space is not there. The things appearing in it are still the content of space. So there can be nothing other than that. Nothing wrong if I don't think about it. And where does thought arrive from? Well, as I say, thought is a vibration, a movement of energy. And as Nisargadatta puts it, he says, nothing can trouble you excepting your own imagination. Imagination, we use that word a lot, and you know what imagination is. Imaging in, creating mental or conceptual images. And that's what the so-called mind, which is the believed in conceptual image, is imaging in all these concepts and words and things. And that's our problem. If you see that awakened mind, the pure space-like awareness, leaving it rest in its singularity as it is, and knowing the truth, because that's what it says, just know the truth. You know that you are. What you are, you don't know. You conceptualize what you are. Without conceptualizing, just that, be that knowing, which you can't negate. Be that being. Stop being, if you can. You call yourself a human being. So you've got this so-called human form, which you think is being, and I am that human form being. I call it the God, the supreme being. You've got this other form we call God. This is greater than being than I am. It's different from me. It's higher than me. I've got to become godlike. But they're both pure being. Take out the word supreme, the label which we've learned. Take out the word God, another label which we've learned. Try and separate the actuality, the reality of you. Anyone stop being? Anyone not being? Nobody's negating it. So innately you know it. So that knowing is recognise and work from that point of view. And we still drop back into thoughts initially. Because I hear people coming in, I saw it clearly, but I lost it. Who saw it? The conceptual entity, the imagined self. Who could lose it? The separate entity, the imaginal self. But what was seen, what was recognised, what was cognised, the emptiness, those thoughts and separation appear in that. The thoughts appear in it. It doesn't appear in the thoughts. So that's what we need to look at and remember and recognise, recognise. Because it's only me that can be fearful, me that can be anxious, me that can be full of self-pity or resentful. All those me thoughts are fear, anger, depression, guilt, anxiety, stress, jealousy, envy, a lot of suffering happening to me. So we realise that they are the effects of relating to me. Relationship relativity is dualism. Me and the other. So me is the cause of all my fears, anxiety, stress, guilt. And the fears, the anxiety, the stress are the effects of the cause. And what do they tell you when you look in the scriptures? Cause your cause and effect. They say it's karma, and you've got to work on your karma. Work it out and do something about your karma. All you need to be worked on is to recognise the cause is a fiction. And if you see that the cause is a fiction, just ask yourself the simple question. Can there be an effect if I'm not relating to a cause? Or can there be? There can't possibly be any cause if it's not related to a cause. So where does that leave me? Well, I can tell you where I am present and aware right in this moment is the presence awareness. And as time is a mental concept, instead of moving along with the concepts, ideas and images, remain as it is, present and aware. Until the stabilisation comes. The recognising is simple, coming straight away, but it's stabilised over a period of time because these concepts we've taken on will keep cropping up for a while. But after the recognition of them and the stabilising, they won't bother you. You'll know the truth, as they say, and the truth will set you free. You are the great reality. You are that, and that is all there is. And thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so welcome again, and everyone who is online with us and who will watch later. I'm Kat, Bob's partner, and I'm bringing in the online content, and we have a lot of welcome messages. We have a comment from Jeff. No conflict, division when we are space for each other's space. Yeah. And happy days to all from Richard, and lots of good mornings. So this is it really for the online contributions. So we invite you now to contribute from here. Any questions, any comments, anything that comes up, anything that moved you perhaps from Bob's spiel, what you heard, what resonated or what didn't? I'll highlight then what Bob was just saying, what you are you don't know. And I often come across people who try to find themselves, define themselves. They believe that, oh, I'm the only one who don't know who I am. Everybody else knows who they are. Well, they have concepts. But the conceptual knowledge is a limitation, because whatever concept you may have about yourself, it will be some form of description, some form of limitation. But the honest truth is, whatever you describe, whatever appears in consciousness is not the subjectivity, is not what you are. What you are, you can't know. You may want to have a concept, because it kind of, kind of medicates the fear. But how about being present and being completely at peace with that simple fact that you know for certain that you are, and you have no clue what you are, apart from the concepts that are ever changing. You had different concepts when you were a child. You had different concepts yesterday. You have a good concept when on a nice sunny day when you fit and strong. You have a negative concept when you are angry or hungry or weak. Those concepts are completely unreliable, and those are appearance in consciousness. But who they appear to, what they appear to, that's a mystery. And finding a place when you are at peace with that mystery, that beyond any doubt you know that you exist. Without any concept you know that you exist. You know there is a consciousness present. But what or who is a story. And giving your heart and prioritizing the truth over the story is finding home, is finding peace. And is joy, is subtle joy in it. When there is no anxiety to find out, to get somewhere, to define oneself. And as Bob says, when the heart really abides in that, when it's stable, when there's no flashing, following attention, following concepts coming home, attention, following concept coming home, then that even the maturation of that deepening, stabilization of that simple recognition of a mystery of being, which is never hidden, never far away, it flourishes in a subtle bliss. And of course, the promises of eternal bliss is just a sales pitch for the enlightenment. Look for pleasure, look for eternal love and union and whatever. That kind of appeals to the seeking mind, which is designed to always avoid pain and seek pleasure. But this is the initial level where the seeking starts. I want pleasure for me, I want enlightenment for me. But the more you are exposed to that message, the more is a resonation with that message. The less of that very superficial, childish mind sort of desire for eternal pleasure is attended to, and more of that deep longing for being at peace with the mystery and unknowability of existence takes place. And it is a simple recognition. It is here now. It's never hidden. There's no one who can deny it or argue with it. And even denial or arguing with it is just an appearance on that screen of consciousness. Jack, did you want to say something? No?
I'll say something. I don't know there's much point because I think I know the answer, but I'll say it anyway.
Say it anyway.
Well, I've had the mind attack the last 3 days, and like it's. I recognise that it's not real. I recognise that it's occurring to something, in something, and it just is. But it's so compelling. It just sucked me in. Like, and I've done ridiculous hours and have this fear that's under. I even recognise the fear that's driving it. But it's gone on for 3 days. So that's stabilising. Just tips on stabilising. And so even now, asking the question, I kind of know the answers. So it's but Bob, how can you really just keep remembering? I mean, tips to. Can you stop that mind attack, or you just have to say, well, it's not me, and just let it happen?
You don't have to stop it. But you see, if it's non-dual and it's only the space-like awareness, it's all equal. So what's coming with mind that's causing the opposite. See that as equal too. You got a coin, got heads and tails on it. You look at the head and look at the tail. You think it's two. It's still the one thing. So they couldn't be the one thing without the other. But when those thoughts come up, I leave them there, then I don't leave them, and realise if that awareness wasn't there, you're aware of those thoughts going on. Otherwise, how would you be able to say, I'm in the head going on? Well, settle back into that awareness, watch it. Instead of focusing into the thoughts, fighting with them, trying to get rid of them, keeps it there. Just leave it as it is. It moves on.
Those thoughts drive action as well. So they drive frantic action.
Can you say it to the mic?
Those thoughts drive frantic action as well, like 16, 17, 18-hour days, like I recognise it comes from a fear that's driving it, but then do you do the action, or you should just say, forget it, just get out, drop it, go?
Not up to you.
So watch it and recognise, if there's a natural response, but when you react to it, that's when you get caught in it. There will be a natural, spontaneous response to all activities, just the same as you take the next breath. But when it comes up and something does something you don't like it, and you react to it, well, you're in the problem again. But if there was a natural response, it might have been recognised, it still might stir up something. But see, life goes on and continues to function. But as I say, very little comes in, what is it? Doesn't come, as I say, nigh thy dwelling place. Goes on outside. The activities go on, but it doesn't touch you.
There is a place, there is a space in you which is okay, even with mind being dysregulated, frantic and attacked, and actions being erratic and crazy. This is what is happening. If there is no judgment that this is good or bad, or should or shouldn't happen this way, that's fascinating. Like, I can see my mind occasionally coming up with nonsense, and there is still like a backseat sort of a fascination. Like, wow, where is this one coming from? Little old memory or little old behavior, and amazing, because that body-mind machine is not who I am, but it is already programmed to behave in certain ways. Yeah, Bob?
As in the Bible, as it's saying, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. How would you renew your mind? Remind yourself all the time that it's equal. It's not two. Even though it's appearing terrible and horrible or whatever. Just remind yourself it's equal. It's only the one without a second. And the sting and the belief that it's good, bad, and everything goes out of it.
Mm. That's a funny thing, because I even recognise within it all, I recognise that I'd rather have this than nothing. And the alternative is nothing. I even have that thought and still it goes on. But thank you.
But no thing is the everything. And the everything is the no thing. Equal.
And as Bob said before,
We have to wait for the
I
mic.
know.
And I think there's three people.
Oh,
who
sorry.
want to say
You were
something.
going to say it, or so
Yeah, Marty and then
That's
Peter
it.
and then
That's
have to wait in line.
How we doing?
yeah, yeah.
Good to
It's
see everyone
good, it's
again.
a lot of interest.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to tell a little story about a meeting I had with Bob not long ago with a friend. And I was sitting on the couch listening to Bob talk to my friend, because I've obviously gone to see Bob a fair amount. I'm pretty happy with what is. But I had a question that was coming up, but I didn't want to ask it in front of my friend. And anyway, Bob ended up answering it without me asking him the question. And it actually is the same, so it relates to the same question that's being asked now. And that's, so I still go out and drink with my friends. I still do lots of, what I used to think would be shit things. And they still happen. They haven't changed. I thought, now that I know that they would all change, I would become vegetarian. No. I'd be vegetarian. I wouldn't be drinking more than 4 pints on a Saturday, because Bob's, he's been sober now, so surely there must be some kind of change that happens in my life. That is some kind of straight and narrow path. And then Bob basically answered that with, there's no resistance to what is. What is exactly how it should be. And it's just a thought that thinks, it should be this way. And then that creates the resistance, which creates the conflict, which creates the disease that he talks about, which creates the duality. And then I just accepted it. And he said, if there's a thought that is resisting what is, and you're going to keep that thought around, and it's going to keep coming back and back, instead of accepting how the way things are, and then noticing and allowing there to be a new experience, a different thought, a different, whatever it ends up being. And that, I feel like, answers that question. Yeah. All our lives are different, and our lives and thoughts are different, and there's no right or wrong thought that should appear. But if you think there's a right or wrong thought that should appear, then you're not accepting what is, and then you're keeping that around, and you're keeping the duality. Yeah.
Yeah. Peter?
Is the mind the bogey man? That's the thing to realise, isn't it, Mike? To have a look at the point of resistance. Like, where is the point of resistance? That's a key thing. I think we were talking about that on the way in. Like, if you want to resolve a problem, where is that point of resistance? What am I resisting? Because everything is that, as Bob quite rightly pointed out in various ways. He's told us all the time that everything is that. But so what is the point of resistance? Well, the point of resistance has to be my mind. The mind. I think the mind is the bogey man. That's the bottom line, isn't it? There's something wrong with your mind. You have to get rid of it. So maybe if we stop resisting, what would happen? What would happen? Would we disappear? So that's one other thing I wanted to say there. Bear with me. It's just if we examine what the mind is, it's It's a tool for identifying ourselves separate from everything else, isn't it? That's what we do. Yeah. It's an amazing thing. That's what individuals here are, is the separation apparatus. We're thinking all the time of a way in which we can react to something. If somebody takes if I take a hard position on anything at all, half the people in this room might think, well, you're wrong. Right? What's that process? And half might agree, half might say I'm wrong. So what is it? That is the process of identifying who I am here in time and space. Is that wrong? That's the point of resistance, isn't it? No, it's not wrong. It's just what we do. That's what humans do. But it doesn't make any difference to anything, does it? Really, in the end of the day. I've said enough.
Jane?
Bob so rightly said that, when there's a catching up, when we get caught up, it takes a while for the body to get over it, and it reminded me of the elements. We're the elements, after a big storm, after there's thunder and lightning, after there's shitloads of rain, takes a while for things to settle, but it's not that there's any you, it's not that there's any other, it's just, it's not always sunny, it's not always raining, it's not always thunder and lightning, and it's just the getting caught up in the separation, the duality, So what I love more than anything that Bob says is leave it unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected. Yeah.
Beautiful. I have a couple of Anita, and then I have a couple of interesting questions from the online.
I just want to what was
Yeah,
what was obvious there is that constant change with or without chatter, mind commentary. Constant change.
Absolutely. Yeah, great point. Okay, so we have 20 few people with us, and Sally, question for Bob. Hi Bob, does the maturation of the realization still occur for you? And if so, can you talk about that? Can you feel the deepening of maturation, in a way?
Well, if I felt it, there'd be somebody feeling it.
Yeah, you were talking about stabilization.
Yeah, well, it stabilises itself.
Yes.
As Jane was saying, it settles down after the storm, things settle down.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally, if you run around the block, you puff for a while.
Mm-hmm.
What happens?
Yeah.
Don't keep doing it, settle down.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so is the answer to question, does the maturation or stabilization still occur for you? Is the answer yes or no? Or
Well, it still is.
yeah. Okay. So Laura says, mind attacks are compelling, all right, difficult. And Bill, you know that you are not in the mind. It is a habit, though, and so it might keep twirling around like a merry-go-round for a while. But the you that sees what the mind is doing is changeless, conscious light. You are losing interest in the mind as the place to be because you don't exist there. And Laura says, that's beautiful. And Laura says, thank you for raising the mind attack question. And Corina, I am clear about the true nature. What there is unsurety about is that others are not just illusions in the consciousness from this perspective, essentially solipsism. So that's unresolvable, isn't it? It's a theoretical or philosophical approach saying that everyone else is just imagined or is appearing in my dream. How can you ever verify that? You can't. It is a very subjective position So it is a question, do I believe it or I don't believe it? Question the I who wants to believe or not believe in solipsism. Because being unresolvable and belonging to the realm of mind, how is it even any concern of the life essence? But it is a good question. It's just that contemplation will take you nowhere. And we have Jyoti, unless you want to add something to it?
No, just as I know what Bill was talking about, the you.
Yeah, the one that is unsure.
That's why the ram jumped over the cliff when he heard the Beatles sing, "There'll never be another you."
Yeah, or who wants to know is another way of putting it. And Jyoti says, just wondering, how do new inventions occur to solve a problem if there is acceptance of what is? I hope this makes sense. Yes, I totally get what you're saying. What a wonderful new inventions come from love and satisfaction and the creativity for bringing out beautiful things rather than perceiving problem. I mean, innovation is not necessarily labeling something as problem and rejecting it and fighting it. Innovation also comes from the room for improvement. But if the narrative is tend to perceive defects or problems, that's not a problem. That's another way the creative life essence appears. Complaints, the mind does complain, that's what it does. And I'll tell you, this is the greatest source of laughter in our marriage. The complaining mind, whenever the complaint comes, it does nothing else but make us burst out laughing. But that very complaint could be an invitation for the innovation of problem solving. But thank you for your question. This is a good question. And now Laura says, classic Bob-ism. There will never be another Eve. Ew. Please.
I was just thinking about the imagine, how Bob says, talks about imagine and breaks it down into imagine. The thought came to mind, what's the difference between an imagination and the real? Imagination is a word, image, like Bob says, it's an image. Martin, which is what people call me, is a word, is an image. So what's the difference between a thought and imagination, and what's real? Because real is a thought as well. So what is real is not an image or an imagination or a thought. And you can't say anything about it, but it can't be unnoticed or can't go unseen. It's like, yeah.
Like the image in the mirror. You can't say it's there. Try and grab it out of the mirror. You can't say it's not there.
Yeah.
Same with this manifestation.
Yeah, that's the difference between what's real and an image. Yeah, it's...
I'll just say something else.
Yeah.
I just occurred to me, a dear friend asked me yesterday she said that she was looking forward to a life without any conflict whatsoever. And and I said that's an unrealistic ideal. I said the nature of the mind, works in the pairs of opposites, and the minute the me or the other takes a position, there's often conflict. And sometimes when it's just in conflict with itself, it's the nature of the mind, So I just think, you know, we get caught in the trap of thinking that we're going to be tra-la-la-ing through life when we understand non-duality. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but shit happens.
Yeah, that's a great point. Although there is a great point, yes. Like if you look at the natural world, you look at the wild creatures, the animals. They have to survive every night. They don't have comfortable houses with air conditioning and heating. And life is tough. Life is much more tough for the wildlife than it is for us. They don't have fridge full of food. They have to hunt for every bit of breakfast or dinner. And one could say, okay, that's the natural state. And our natural state is more or less, you know, comfortable, one could say. So the only conflict comes from the narrative. But there is a possibility, and this is, I think, a good answer to Sally's question, you know. Sally was asking whether there is a deepening or there is a stabilization. How was, let's say, your relation with conflict 40 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, and how it is today? So you can tell that the less habitual engagement with the narrative that is always objecting and always complaining, the more smoothly those challenges are being met. Whether there is a body aging and sicknesses creeping, or the financial challenges or relationship challenges, is a different way of responding when that habit of engaging with every thought, every comment is broken or is weakened.
And as Anita said, when you shine the light on, so you said something about shining the light of awareness on stuff that comes up, you know, that becomes more attractive than engaging in the narrative. So, you know, if you had to call it something, you could say, yes, there's a deepening, and it's also a maturation, if you like, of getting over things. I've noticed it used to take me weeks to get over things, you know, when I first came to this stuff. Now I'm over it very quickly. And that doesn't mean to say I don't care or I don't love people, or, you know, it doesn't affect this apparatus, but there is a rolling with it, if you like, that happens, and a letting go and leaving things unaltered, unmodified, uncorrected, which becomes a lot more, if you had to name it in a time frame, a lot quicker. Yeah.
I find that over time, my hard positions have become soft positions or malleable positions more and more. In that way, I'm letting more the possibility of laughing come in. More, isn't it? Like if I have a hard position, I can't laugh, you know, at myself, which is crucial.
Joseph, did you want to say something, Bob?
Oh,
After John.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because I had this other conflict yesterday, and then I was kind of remember what Peter was saying, and then it's actually interesting. It happens what happens. Like this is actually real, like action happens and people do this and whatever they're doing. And then the conflict is when you start having a position in it. But if you watch it as a movie, or you're actually watching a movie and the same story happens in the movie, but you're not in the movie, you're just watching it. So there's no me then there. Then you would just watch it as a movie and have no positioning, and there's no conflict because you're not in anyone's party. What's happening? It kind of found it interesting. I was just listening so much here, and then I didn't know what to say and everything, and then I was just basically feeling not too much in my thoughts and relating to it. I was more listening, and then of course the conflict stuff, what happened, let's say yesterday, always comes up a little bit. Like not that I'm still in conflict, but I'm like looking at it, and I'm just thinking, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, accepting basically what you're saying, accepting reality, and then not have a position in it, because it doesn't matter basically what you say or what you think, because it just happens anyway. So I was just basically tapping all this information to my thing, and then I thought, oh yeah, it's actually watching like a movie. And then actually the key is like to get out of that me and basically watch it as a movie. Is just basically being the observer. Yeah, that's how I...
There's no choice not to accept it, but...
Do you want to take a step?
I was saying, it's funny because it's just like there's no choice not to accept it, so you might as well just join the bandwagon and, you know, go along with it, because you can't do anything other than that anyway. So it's like, once you see that, it's like, well, there's no point of having a thought that's going to be in conflict with it, because that's just going to create resistance and resistance to what's happening. So I might as well, you know, just relax and allow it to happen, because it's been doing that the whole time anyway. Yeah, which is exactly what you said.
Yeah. Bob, did you want to say something
Yeah.
else to Joseph? Huh?
Doesn't matter.
Did matters.
Just to expand on the question of deepening, that just...
Okay.
Bob, do you ever have is there ever a sense of a self or a narrative of a self that arises for you? Like a separate self?
Well, I can't say it's separate anymore. Used to be all the time. When we get talking about the narrative, what does Shakespeare say? A tale told by an idiot.
Full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
Yeah, the narrative. Yeah, the narrative is like a commentary. It's a software. It's like you can program your Siri or Alexa or whatever to actually read the subtitles, or you can have text-to-speech sort of tools. The narrative is basically a piece of software. So the narrative doesn't prove an existence of separate self at all. Whether it is there or it is not there doesn't really matter. The belief in narrative causes suffering, and a lack of belief in suffering causes making it hilarious.
Things don't stop appearing, they'll still appear, but they're empty. What's it tell you in Hensing Ming? Emptiness here, emptiness there, but the infinite universe stands ever before your eyes. You're still seeing, but no difference. The boundaries and conditions are taken away. It's not separated and divided anymore.
Thank you.
Funny.
And Laura says, I can't help but have conflict when I see a dog neglected. That's a beautiful way of love expressing. And would you rather have that dream character being heartless zombie? So you may actually enjoy that sense of resistance, that sense of love response. And as a space, you are not touched, but the dream character is. And you may even experience a subtle joy of that dream character having that sensitivity and vulnerability, remembering that this is not essentially who you are, this is just a vehicle of expression. But that's a good example. And Peter, you want to say?
Bob, you want to say something?
Said it love.
Yeah, it's just fascinating, isn't it? That we as humans are constantly trying to identify ourselves here through conflict, through resistance. It's the only way we can do it. The more resistant we are to something, the more defined we are. That's what we do. That's simply what we do. Oh, bang. That's the realisation somehow that hits us, I think, isn't it? That this is all right. Everything's all right. Everything is that. Everything is that energy. Even the resistance. There's nothing to do in that. And So, would we want it? The question is, would you really want it to be the way that we're constantly trying to make it something into something? Yeah, we're constantly trying, aren't we, to make something hard, which is really, really very soft and malleable and already changed anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's already gone. Past is already there, gone.
Joseph.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's what you're saying, and then it's like an image or of an identity, and then someone said something like a child said to me, a friend of mine, child said to me, "Oh, you're a worker," and then they say, "You see you as a worker because I'm doing a lot of things," and then I thought, oh, what's this means? I'm a worker. Like I thought it's just activity happening, and then I was asking my girlfriend like what worker means, and then it's like, you're like a worker. So what does it mean? and then it's like, yeah, you're getting shit done. And then I thought, oh, this is a good image, like it's a good identity. I like it, and then I got more motivated to do more. But it's actually then also that wrong image, and then you identify with it, and then I'm in conflict because like, yeah, but I don't catch up with people because I'm always getting things done, and then all the conflict started again, and yeah, because you only have 24 hours a day, so if you get more shit done, you don't do other things. So actually that feeling, it gives a good feeling, and then I want to do more because that feeling is there, and that image and the identity with it. And so that I got confused because I thought, oh, that's a great thing I felt. Amazing, that thought, but then it's created another conflict somewhere else as you identify it with the me. So I was like, I saw that both. Like it was sort of a pleasure to identify with that as well, like as in a positive feeling rather than a negative. So then I thought, oh, that's good. But then in another moment, it's just the conflict, which is then the opposite again. Yeah, that's what came up.
True. That's beautiful what you say, Joseph, because that's really bringing that quality attention to the functioning of the device. You can see how the mind functions. Bob often give it as a inspiration for people. Watch the mind. See how mechanical it is. See how it, associates, how it divides into good and bad, pleasant and painful, happy and sad, how it gives meaning, positive or negative, how it relates to oneself. This is relevant, this is irrelevant. Once you see that instrument, how it actually operates, where are you looking from? That is seeing the machine and its function from that point of clarity. And then how can you ever fall for it again? If you see the magician, the trick of the magician, you can see how the identification come about. How that very, very convincing voice which says I brings, like suck up all the attention, and suddenly this is I. No, it isn't. It's still the machinery functioning, doing its best, and it's a wonderful machinery. Like they say, it's a fantastic servant, beautiful advisor, especially if you see that everything it comes with is really for the survival of the body, it's really for your good, it's really an expression of love for the self, whatever the self is imagined to be. But yeah, identification with that narration, that's the suffering, that's the problem. But getting to know it is so amazing. It's just so incredible. And now whether it has negative narrative, or whether it has painful meaning, or whether it has hopelessness, or whether it has shame, doesn't really matter what it exhibits. You see a wonder, incredible, incredible wonder. is so complex. It really envelops the whole appearance. It really is the whole universe. It's the microverse in the, the way the mind functions is the way the universe functions, because that's the projector. That's how it. You can have a glimpse of eternity in just seeing the wonder, rather than associating itself that this is me, this is I, this is who I am. And I have to defend myself, and I have to justify myself, and I have to make myself right and others wrong. And you can see it. This is really great to hear.
Yeah, and it just struck me as everything that's being said here, that's continually said, is just affirming what's actually happening. Like, it struck me what Bob said about keeping, everything is equal. Well, that seems like a bit of a conundrum to the mind. How do we keep everything equal? But in fact, that's actually what's happening, because everything comes and goes and passes. And in a way, that's what we're all trying to sort out and understand by coming to that sense of equalness or oneness, could be another word for it. And these discussions almost just tease all that out to see that, well, that's actually what's going on anyway, despite our concepts of good, bad, and everything in between. And coming here, I find that just listening and participating actually unravels. Everything is unraveled of its own. And to see that fact, the fact of what we're all talking about and having insights into, comes to fruition, or is just shown and understood or revealed of its own. It's quite beautiful.
Tasha.
I have a question, but in the guise of a statement. So this is the 4th time I've been here, and every time I come here, I actually feel like someone drugs me on the way through. And the longer I'm here, the more, like, this is serious, like the more I just feel like, oh, fucking shut up. And just, oh man, it's just like so blissful. I actually want to fall asleep. And I leave here and I go, wow, this is amazing. But so my question sort of in a statement is, when the thoughts come back, when the monkey chatter comes back, it's like as if it anchors in a presence of maybe the me self, I'm not sure the words. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say that I feel really blissful when I don't think and don't talk, and feel like I could just fall asleep into eternity and don't care. I actually don't care. But then when the thoughts come back, it's like, oh, I sit up and take notice. It anchors you in as a human being, as a functioning being, I think. So my question is, what actually is that? What's going on? And thanks for the drugs.
Yeah. So what's going on? You want to answer the question?
Settle down into it. As Kat was saying, when the thing ties down behind it all is that incredible wonder. Relax into that. Never mind the thoughts. Thoughts will come and go and do what they do, and their body will act on it if necessary or whatever. But you know. You already know.
Thought I'd have my 10 bobs with one of the things that I love about this this environment is that you hear so many expressions of the same thing, I suppose what I'm really doing is commenting on this mind that goes on, and it's just maybe I have different perceptions to other people, but I see this as like systems within systems within systems. There's the systems of cells, there's systems of minds and bodies, there's systems of cultures, there's systems of humanity. They have civilization and so on, and this is a tiny little system. And how can I possibly understand what's going on? Even our best computers can't do that. So there's a sort of an equanimity and letting go of all that. And I don't know whether that's useful for anybody, but that's just the way I see it. Thank you.
There's also the who wants to know what's going on?
Yeah. And I have Marty.
Yeah, my hand just went like that. Something that I read from Nisargadatta has been popping up a lot lately, which is have a look at what you are not, and then what you are will be
what's left.
What's left. So then he said, you've been focusing too much on what you are not and missing what you are. And he said, put your attention on what you are not and spend time there, or time, relax there. Yeah.
Says what you already are. That's what he said.
And he says what you are not is to be discarded. So discarding the body, the mind, the thoughts, everything that's causing phenomena is to be discarded. And I have a couple of comments from our online community. Ram, answering to Laura, Nisargadatta told Jin Dun, the consciousness in you is the same as the consciousness in that donkey across the road. And she got offended and wanted to leave. But that is actually pretty obvious, and the source of that compassion we feel for that suffering dog. And Laura answered to it, Ram, that feels so correct. My heart is breaking as I know the dog's heart is breaking. Yeah, beautiful. And we do actually want to acknowledge that subtle preference for life and for love. Because, the preference for, let's say, for silence over thoughts, it is a subtle sense of self having a preference there. Or it may be just arising preference. But that preference causes suffering. But we all, as a being, as a love of being, and as a projector of that love of being, we have also a preference for joy over suffering. And if that completeness, that sense of completeness is in here, that is likely to be projected outside. So we wish that love of being and that joy of being to be realized in everything that we project, including the suffering dog. So it is still a preference arising, but that preference is just what is arising. It arises in a space of love of being that you are. And it doesn't cause suffering.
See, so my silence sings. My emptiness is full.
Yeah. So even preference for silence over thoughts is just what's arising.
My all-time favorite Nisargadatta quote is, nothing is by you or for you. You are the light alone.
That's beautiful. No?
None of the one God says. everything you do and everything you say is for yourself, and that's what causes all the conflict. So, you know, see that and love it, because all it does is brings you closer to that presence. Not that there's anyone to be closer to it, but it just detaches you from that narrative. Yeah. A habit.
We're all addicts.
It's my mind. It's the mind. I can't do a thing with it.
But yeah, the truth is, yes, the self, the space, can't do a thing. The mind does its job, just like the heart does its job, just like the sweating or lymph does its job. The question is, can I leave it be? Do I have any other option? And just relaxing out of the identification as that mind and seeing how it does its job. And then if the judgment comes up, no, it does, you know, those thoughts are good or bad, well, relax even further and see that this is not you judging it. This is just arising thought, another thought, another thought. And that brings us to the conclusion. Yes, darling? Last word?
Nobody's ever spoken a word in here today.
No, so true.
Could have fooled me.
Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you,
Thank
Kat.
you.
Thanks
Thank you,
everyone
everyone.
as well.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.